This is the Global Podcast Network, where executives and professionals connect, share, and inspire. Stay tuned for the conversations that drive success.
Yes, welcome back, everybody. She offers so much to help us move our lives forward in many different areas. Of course, counseling and psychotherapy, but also grief recovery. And many of us are grieving. We don't even know we are from many different situations. It could be the loss of something. That's essentially what it is. Today, we're going to look at something very much different in the world of grief: medical assisted death. And she's got a lot of insight on much of this. That's why we bring her back in here. Fiona Mitten is on the program. How are you doing today?
I'm wonderful. Thank you very much. How are you?
Very well. And surprised when it comes to medical assistance in death that quite a number of states have legalized it, right?
11.
And Washington, D.C., it was just this year that they gave the okay.
Yep.
Wow. Before we go even deeper into it, what do you think was the rationale even for Washington, D.C. to join the other 10 states to legalize it? What do you think? And of course, you're in Canada, by the way, and it's been legal there for almost 10 years, right?
Yep. It'll be 10 years. Well, in January, it'll be 10 years, 2026.
Lots to discuss here. Some may agree, some may not. We're just providing both sides here to look at it. What's your overall thoughts on medical assistance in death?
Well, personally, I think it's selfless, and it's compassionate, and it's kind, and it's loving to the people who are in terminal illness or like in lifelong chronic pain. Or so my dad did MAID in June of 2019. Then my mother-in-law passed natural in August of that same year. Then I lost my uncle in November, and then my husband was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer in November. Lost my grandpa in December, and then Kyle did MAID, my husband, from pancreatic cancer in February of 2020. And then my mom did it in 2021. So I have a very personal connection with MAID. Having said that, it is important to know that I don't know what it's like down there, but for people up here, doctors force people to stay alive because they give them that mask now for when you can't breathe or when you die at nighttime. Sleep apnea. So that's where I kind of link it to. If we're kind of forcing people to stay alive with a mask, because now people don't die peacefully in their sleep anymore because they have this mask on their face that when they would have passed away, they now use this mask keeps them alive. So, and why is it that we put our animals down with love and compassion because they're sick, right? We don't want to see them sick. But yet with people, well, just die on your own, and we're going to have you aspirating and with machines on you and your family having to watch you suffer. And I don't know what it's like down there, but up here, doctors have been putting people out of their misery for a long time, just not legally, like with a couple of shots of extra morphine, right? Like doctors have been gracious with people dying for a long, long time. You just didn't know it until this whole battle of is MAID okay, is MAID not okay. Does that make sense?
Crystal clear. And I would imagine that for that to take place, that there needs to be the right diagnosis. The doctor needs to view everything in a certain way. It is a personal choice, though. I would imagine, when you're in that situation, you have a doctor saying, yeah, here's what we're dealing with. It's your life. You know what I'm saying?
Correct. Yep.
and I'm processing this as we go along here, but I don't see what's the downside? What's the downside potential? Not being negative here, but those who are opposed to it, what do you hear from them?
Well, I always hear it classed as that you're committing suicide. The doctors are helping you commit suicide. If you want to bring it down to brass tacks, the doctors are actually committing homicide. Not legally, but that's what's happening. You're just laying in bed. You're not doing anything at all. You just signed a piece of paper. So when you take the dog to the vet, are they killing themselves? No, the doctors sending them to heaven, right? Like it's not. So I don't know, because I don't see a downside to it, because I've watched people die without MAID, and it was torturous and hellish to watch them die. Awful, right? Not be able to get breath, not be able to get air. Like, I mean, it's watching people choke to death. I mean, they're awful ways to die. And so I don't really see a downside, but that's me, right? Because I've done it multiple times, and I think I view it as people can get really hypersensitive about right and wrong. Well, it's God's time. You need to die in God's time. Well, that's great. Why do we induce labor, right? If we're having babies and we're scheduling a birth, why are we allowed to schedule a birth but not schedule a death? Right? Like, there's so much when you think about what we're allowed to do, and then, oh no, don't do that. That's not okay. So the downside, I think, is that, like, people, but we up here, I don't know what the laws are like down there, but up here you have to have two doctors sign off on it. You have to have a witness sign off on it that's not in your will, right? It's not going to gain anything from your death. And if they think it's depression or something like that, then you have to see a psychologist and or a psychiatrist and talk that, like, why are you wanting to die? What is the actual reason you're wanting to die? And is it physical or is it emotional? Because those are very different things, right? So that's kind of the downside. They don't want people going in because grandma and grandpa are getting old, and we know they have lots of money in their estate. So let's just give them to MAID, then we'll get our money faster. That's kind of a downside. That's where people go in their heads.
Well, when we talk about the suicide connection there, or assisted suicide,
Mm-hmm.
we're typically not talking about somebody that is in pain and has been diagnosed that they only have a certain amount of time to live. And as I understand it, usually in the states that allow this, the 11, it's typically 6 months, 6 months or less.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not like somebody's choosing to die. It's going to happen anyway. Disease or illness is going to take their life. This is just sooner than later, and for all the other reasons you just described, but they're choosing not to prolong a difficult and painful dying process. So the end result is the same. Suicide,
Mm-hmm.
completely different here,
Yep.
and gray territory if somebody has been diagnosed with a terminal illness and then decides to take their own life, but again, the result is the same, confirmed by a doctor. Would you have changed anything in the passing of the people close to you?
No, not in any way, shape, or form. It was the most beautiful things I've ever done in my life. So I was able to, I said to my dad, I said, what would you like me to do for your death day? Because we choose death days, right? So I said, what do you want me to do for your death day? He says, would you write my eulogy? I said, absolutely, Dad. So I wrote him his eulogy, and my mom was there, my sister was there, my nephew was there, my aunt, a couple of my aunts, a couple of my cousins that love Dad, and and so I read this eulogy, and my tears are rolling down everybody's faces, and then my dad says, "Is that really what you think of me?" I said, "No, Dad, this is just what I read for you. The one I'm going to do at church is entirely different." And of course, then he starts to laugh instead of cry. Um, because it's beautiful. Like, I was there to feel their last heartbeat. I was there to hold their hands, and it wasn't awful. Nobody was coughing and choking, and like, it was just, they were sleeping, and that was all, right?
Mm.
And then my husband, I took him for a mani pedi, he had hot wax on his feet. He's like, why are you doing this the day before? You spent $400 the day before I die. Right. So you can go to heaven with soft feet, right? Like, so we did that. And for my mom, she wanted 10,000 carnations. So we called Costco and they delivered 10,000 red carnations.
Wow.
Right? I know. We had to go to the second-hand store to buy a bunch of vases. We had more flowers and vases. So yeah, it was beautiful. It was absolutely beautiful.
And again, it's the end is near regardless.
Mm-hmm.
The diagnosis was made. I want to flip this for just a moment, Fiona, and since you work with people in the grief recovery process, does this typically change the way people grieve when somebody passes? Does it make it easier? Does it
Yep.
change that?
It made it so much easier for me. I don't even I haven't had to do anything on those people because everything was done. I had no regrets. There was nothing we hadn't talked about. There was I mean we had 6 months to prepare. We had three with Kyle because he got diagnosed in November and died in February. But there was nothing. Like Kyle and I did videos every single night. I come home from work and we do a video of how his day was, how his health was, how my day was. So it's that kind of stuff. I always love to have videos of people or listen to their voices because those are things that go away when someone's gone. We don't think about the fact that we don't hear their voice anymore. We don't think about the fact that we don't see them. I mean, I can see them in my head, but that starts to fade too. Like people, so all the things that I've done in my grief process, I have grieved more the loss of people in that are not dead, but not in my life anymore than I have these three people who did me because there was no anger. We had very candid family discussions about it all. Like there was no secrets. It wasn't about money. It was just simply about them not wanting to hurt anymore. And how can anybody who loves somebody that deeply want them to suffer? That would all be about my own selfishness of keeping them here. And that's awful. That's wrong.
Did you feel that with this you were better prepared for those close to you in their passing?
Absolutely, it was.
And
Pictures, yeah.
if they were naturally going to die, I'm going to call it naturally, even though there'd be a mask on them, and we prolong the pain a little bit longer, and all of that. You still are prepared because it's the end is the end, give or take weeks or a month to whatever. But mentally, it seems that the family would be better prepared for their passing. And again, it's an individual choice of somebody. It's not, you should, of course you want your family to be more comfortable with it, but it's really your individual choice. But, all of that being said, it seems like you'd be better prepared for the passing.
You're totally prepared. Everything's done. So when my mom, when my dad went, my mom was like, "Oh, we have to get started on that headstone." I'm like, "Okay." So I took pictures of so we made this beautiful headstone. My dad was a truck driver. He used to drive a Mack all the time. And so we had a picture of this beautiful Mack like on his head. Like it's beautiful. It's absolutely beautiful. And my mom, I have the house where she grew up in on the other side. And then I have their wedding picture right in the very middle. It said, like of when they were like before they even got married, they were like 16 when they first started dating. And it's the beauty of all the things that you can plan together, right? And because people don't want to talk about death, they're terrified to die. Maybe because they don't know where they're going, maybe because they don't have faith, maybe they just don't know. Like,
Mm.
right? And so people are terrified to die, and it's a topic. So don't talk about that. Don't talk about that because people are afraid to die. My mate, this is me being I'm out right here. My mate paperwork is filled out and is ready to go. I have no desire to die today, none. I also know that when the time comes, like I've been in my wheelchair for 6 weeks. Like I just started walking yesterday. So for me, when the time comes, I don't need to fight with nobody. Everybody knows my wishes. All my friends are on board. my family does that. They're all in heaven already. So I just get to call it. Like I'm tapping out. Done.
Yep. Well, I want to factor out religious views here. That's something different. We're not talking about that. I don't do religion. I do no politics. That's something different. If that's in your belief and that's your choice, and that's perfectly fine. But we're going to put that over to the side because that most opponents of this it's religious views. But you said
Yeah.
something that really strikes a chord, I believe, in that being afraid to die.
Yep.
You've been fighting this illness. You're not sure when the end is coming, but you know it's going to be coming fairly soon based on the prognosis of the doctor. And then you have all these thoughts, what you're saying, and it's conjuring up images and everything of, now you're declining in health rapidly. Now you have the mask on. Now you can't breathe properly and all of that. Who wouldn't be afraid?
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't sound like fun at all.
It's not.
This is the alternative to make it more, I don't want to say fun, but more understandable. And everything we do goes back to being comfortable and fear. Fear is the biggest driver or what holds us back from everything. Talk to any psychologist, everybody. It goes back to fear. You want to be kept safe. That's not a safe feeling situation. There's lots of fear in that, not knowing what's going to happen in your final days. You could hope that you're going to be out of it, and then that'll be it. You could be wide awake up until the final moment with the mask on, with everything, all of that, and be very uncomfortable at the same time. I believe there's a lot to be said there. You're giving us different views of this. What else do you want people to know about it?
Well, I can tell you that when the moment that they made that decision, the very moment they made the decision, said, I don't want to be here anymore, Fiona. And we'd already talked about it with my family and the sisters and all and that stuff. And the beauty was it was almost like the last week after they made that choice and signed the paperwork and stuff. It was like they perked up. Their moods perked up. Their health kind of got a little bit better. It was like that last week of once they knew for certain that they got to go and it was going to be painless and free. It was like the whole pressure of death was just gone. There was the fear was gone. The contentment was there. They allowed themselves to just be who they are naturally without all that crap of what is my life going to look like in my future, because it was just not stressful anymore.
Wow.
It was remarkable to witness, and it happened with all of them.
What was the amount of time where they made the decision? And again, I'm saying they made the decision versus when the end of their life came. How much time was it? 6 months, 5, 3, what?
I think my dad was going to be 2 weeks, and then it ended up being a month because he wanted his family doctor to be his GP to be there. So we all had him scheduled for the Tuesday before Father's Day. No, 2 weeks before Father's Day. And then he said, no, I want my doctor to be there. I'm like, oh, so of course I have all this stuff planned for this day. He phoned me 3 days before. No, the doctor can't do it until next week, so we have to put it off. I'm like, oh, really? Thanks, Dad. I had done it was funny. People couldn't really figure out how I was okay with, well, it's going to die on Tuesday. No, it's going to die next Tuesday. Okay, well, anyway. And then my husband was very fast because he didn't get his diagnosis was the end of November, and he was gone. They gave him 3 to 6 months, and we just got made done because the doctor was surprised he'd lasted that long. And he died on February 4th. And then when my mom chose her decision, so when I was sick in the hospital, I used to get this stabbing, like an ice pick in the side of my head, like jabbing, like neurological. And I'd be like, going like, because it would hurt. And so my neurologist in Ottawa did to put this needle in my skull to stop that pain. And my mom now this is like 15 years later, whatever. My mom says, okay, because I can see her doing that. And I know, I said, you let that stab me? Yes, I do. And I said, well, I'll find somebody in Edmonton or in Alberta where we can get that done. And she agreed to it. And I was stunned because she said, I'm never getting that needle in my skull ever. And then I finally found a doctor up here who was willing to do it. And I said, oh, Mom, I got a guy. And it wasn't even 3 days after she says, I'm not getting that needle. I'm tapping out. Done. I want to die.
Wow.
All over not wanting to have a needle in her head. Yeah.
There's so many different ways to look at this. Can a patient both get hospice care or palliative care and medical assistance in dying?
Absolutely. My husband was in palliative care.
Okay.
Yep.
What's left out there that we haven't talked about? New territory for me, so I rely on you.
Well, I think giving people the option. And my husband, I had on his memorial card, I can remember it. I wrote on the very bottom, selfless until the end, his last day. Because I was able to, because he knew that if he got sick on his own and kept me, like, because he knew my health and he knew that the stress of taking care of him and him not being able to take care was just going to make my sickness worse. So it's about people allowing people to love themselves enough to let them go. Because the only reason we don't want to let go of people is because we're selfish and we want them here with us. That's really brass tacks, right? Like, why would I want anyone I love to suffer? It makes no sense.
And every situation is different. However, when somebody is declining to the point where now we're looking at days or week 2 left, isn't it about the same thing? The only difference is we're not getting to the final stage where respiratory issues and on and on and on. We're ending life right before that. Am I saying that right?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
And again, every situation is different, but what is the difference in that time frame? It could be a day, it could be 3, it could be 5, it could be a week, but it's still generally very close either way you look at it.
Yep. I think it's just the most compassionate thing you can do for someone that you love.
Do you feel that those close to you who made that decision did it more for themselves or more for their family, or combination of both?
I would say a combination of both, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. How long has this been legal in Canada?
Well, since 2016. If it was legal in 2012, we wouldn't be having this conversation. That's a fact. When I was terminally ill and I was in palliative care and I was given 0% chance of life, I'll guarantee you, if it was legal in 2012, we would not be talking today.
Wow. Well, I mean, a can of worms just got open right there because, that's the opponents are going to say, well, you know what? Look at her. Look, Fiona, she didn't go.
Nope. And I tell all the people, even now, because I have lots of friends that are all weird about it. I'm like, you know what? The beauty is that God gave me, well, my God, higher power, whatever you want to call it, the universe, allowed me right to this point, 13 and be 14 years in December, more time. I wouldn't have met you, Steve. I wouldn't have met most of my friends because I live in a new city now. So all of my friends that I met now, I would never have met. So I believe that, because I believe in faith. I have faith. I have faith that nothing happens by mistake. Whether it's the universe talking or Buddha talking or openness talking, like, it doesn't matter who's doing that and what you believe in. It simply comes down to the fact that I have a tattoo on my arm that says, I get to live this life. Most people live a life if I have to. Yep. I get to, because I've been gifted and given 14 extra years of my life. And I am grateful for them every single day.
And there may be a reason, so you can talk about this and maybe provide some comfort to others. And of course you do in terms of grief recovery, and there's a special method that you use with that to help pilot people through loss, and everything else you offer. How does somebody find you, Fiona? If they're wrestling with this, they have questions, they want your thoughts on this, how do they find you?
They could reach me at info@fffreedom.online, or you can look at my website at www.fffreedom.online.
The FF is
Freedom.
Fields Fostering Freedom.
Absolutely.
And interestingly, this is what we're talking about, freedom of choice.
Titled by my mother.
Thank you.
Titled by my mother.
You've shared that before, where that name came from. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you for doing what you do, but also providing the information today. This is one of those things that people don't talk a lot about, and I think we need to. Whether you're for or against, conversation needs to be there, and I appreciate that. Thanks for being here.
You betcha. See you next week.
You got it. We'll be right back.
This is the Global Podcast Network, where executives and professionals connect, share, and inspire. Stay tuned for the conversations that drive success.